Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Today we're diving into, Story Mastery by Yamini Naidu.
Ooh, that's good.
You like that?
Yeah.
I figured we're talking about stories.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, so story mastery. Basically, we're trying to figure out how to tell better stories at work.
Right. In a business context.
Yeah, in a business context.
Because it's a bit different than, just hanging out with your friends.
Yeah, definitely. And this book is supposed to be really practical.
Super practical. Lots of real-world examples.
Exactly, which is what we're all about here.
Exactly.
So where do we even begin with this whole story mastery thing?
Well, the book actually kicks off with a story.
Oh, how appropriate.
Right. It's about a cellist named Vedran Smilovic. He played his cello in the ruins of Sarajevo during the Bosnian War.
Wow. That's pretty powerful imagery right there.
It is, and it might seem a little out of place in a business book, but it actually illustrates a core idea.
Which is?
That stories have this incredible power to connect with us emotionally. It's true. When you hear a story that really resonates, it's like you feel it in your gut.
Exactly.
You might not even realize it, but you're being persuaded, not just by logic, but by emotion.
Right. Think about Aristotle's 3 modes of persuasion: logos, ethos, and pathos.
Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember that from college.
Logos is logic, ethos is credibility, and pathos is that emotional connection. The book argues that in business, we tend to focus way too much on the logos part. The logic.
Yeah, like we're all robots or something.
Right. We throw data and facts around.
But sometimes it's like talking to a brick wall.
It goes in one ear and out the other.
Exactly.
And that's where storytelling comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Have you ever sat through a presentation that was just packed with data and you're struggling to stay awake?
All the time.
But then imagine that same information presented as a story.
Okay. Yeah, that would definitely be more interesting.
That'd be way more engaged, right?
Definitely. It's like, I can barely remember what I had for dinner last night, but I can still remember the plot of a good book I read years ago.
Exactly. Because stories tap into our emotions.
Yeah.
And that makes the information sticky and memorable.
Okay, that makes sense.
And get this, the average person's attention span for data is just 9 seconds.
9 seconds?
Yeah.
Seriously?
9 seconds.
Wow. That's less time than it takes me to choose what to watch on Netflix.
That's why we need a better way to communicate.
So, okay, storytelling is important, got it.
Right.
But what exactly does business storytelling even mean?
Yeah, good question.
Is it just like swapping out boring PowerPoint slides for random anecdotes?
Not exactly. There's a difference between casual storytelling and the kind of storytelling that actually gets results in the business setting. It's about being intentional. Crafting stories that have a specific goal in mind.
Like what kind of goal?
Well, it could be anything, really, like inspiring your team or pitching a new idea or building trust with a client.
So it's not just about entertainment.
Right. It's about using stories strategically.
I see. I see. It's like the difference between chatting with your friends and giving a presentation to your boss.
Exactly.
There's a time and a place for both, but the approach is different.
And the book really emphasizes this point. Business storytelling is storytelling with a purpose and for results.
Storytelling with a purpose and for results. I like that.
There's a great Warren Buffett quote that kind of sums it up.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He says, "It's simple, but not easy."
Simple, but not easy. I like that.
Right.
It's a good reminder that there's an art to this whole storytelling thing.
There really is.
It's not something you just magically become good at overnight.
No, it takes practice.
And feedback, probably.
Absolutely.
Speaking of practice, there's this story in the book about a conductor named Benjamin Zander.
Oh, yeah, I love that story.
He used storytelling to make classical music engaging for people who, normally find it pretty boring.
Right.
How did he do that?
Well, his story had a clear purpose. He wanted to change people's perceptions and connect with them on an emotional level.
Makes sense.
He didn't just tell any random story. He carefully crafted a narrative.
Tailored to his audience.
Exactly.
So it wasn't just about entertainment.
No, it was about achieving a specific outcome.
So it seems like there's a spectrum when it comes to business storytelling.
I think so, yeah.
On one end, we have those casual water cooler anecdotes.
Right.
And on the other end, we have these carefully crafted stories that drive specific business outcomes.
I like that, the carefully crafted stories.
Yeah.
That's really what we're aiming for, right?
Exactly.
And the book actually gives us a framework to help us move along that spectrum.
Ooh, tell me more about this framework.
It's all about going from, just using anecdotes,
Yeah.
to actually crafting impactful business stories that get real results.
Same all ears.
That's where the amateur to artist model comes in.
Amateur to artist. I like that.
The idea is that we can all evolve as storytellers, right?
We can level up. But I bet a lot of people listening are thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but I don't even know where to start. I don't have any good stories.
Yeah, that's a common fear.
Or maybe they're just afraid to share, you know?
Sure, like it feels too personal or something.
Exactly. Or maybe they're worried about sounding silly.
Right. Those are all valid concerns.
But the book has something for that, right?
It does. It offers this really helpful framework called storytelling wells.
Storytelling wells. Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
It's all about tapping into different areas of your life where you can find story material.
So these wells are like where we find the raw material for our stories.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready to dig in. Tell me more about these wells.
Well, there are 4 main wells that we can draw from.
So tell me more about these storytelling wells.
All right, think of it like this.
Okay.
Each well is like a different area of your life where you can find story material.
Okay, I like that.
The first one is what the author calls the public domain.
Public domain.
Yeah, and it's filled with stories from history, news, pop culture.
Yeah.
Things we all share.
Right.
So, for example, if you're trying to illustrate a point about, say, perseverance,
Okay.
you could tell the story of Abraham Lincoln,
Oh, yeah, all those setbacks before he became president.
Exactly.
It's like you're using those shared cultural touchstone
Right.
to create common ground with your audience.
Exactly.
What about the other wells?
Well, the next one is called the professional domain.
Professional domain. Okay.
This well is all about the stories you've gathered from your own work experiences,
Oh, okay.
challenges you've overcome, projects you've worked on, lessons you've learned.
So, like, have you ever had a project that completely flopped, but you learned something valuable from it?
Exactly. That could be a great story to share.
Yeah, I've definitely had a few of those.
Right. It's like those learning moments
Yeah.
that we often try to sweep under the rug.
But they can actually be really powerful stories.
If we frame them the right way.
Exactly.
So we've got public stories, professional stories.
What about our personal lives?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the personal domain.
Okay, the personal domain.
This one's a rich source of stories that can really connect with your audience on a deeper level.
Okay.
Think about your hobbies, your passions, your experiences outside of work.
Right.
Maybe you have a story about training for a marathon.
Or like learning to play a musical instrument.
Exactly. Or volunteering in your community, anything like that.
Those are all great examples.
These stories can really reveal your values, your character, your unique perspective.
It's like bringing more of your authentic self to work.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got public, professional, personal.
Right.
Is there a fourth well?
Yes, there is, but it's kind of the opposite of the others.
Okay.
It's the private domain.
Mm-hmm.
This well represents those stories that are off limits.
Okay.
The ones that are too personal, too sensitive to share in a professional setting.
Makes sense.
It's all about respecting boundaries.
Yeah, totally.
Being mindful of what's appropriate.
So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between being authentic and maintaining professionalism.
Exactly.
We need to be mindful of our audience
For sure.
and the context of the situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we know where to look for stories,
Right.
but how do we actually turn those raw materials into, impactful business stories?
That's the million-dollar question.
Is it as simple as just like picking a good story and telling it?
It's a good starting point, but there's something else.
Okay.
Something that often gets overlooked.
What's that?
The power of purpose.
Without purpose, right?
Each story you tell in a business setting needs to have a clear objective.
So it's not just about finding a good story.
No.
It's about finding the right story for the right purpose.
You got it. Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Good.
Remember that anecdote about the kid trying to cook pasta?
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
I mean, it's funny on its own.
But Alessandro Caranti, the author, he links it to a bigger idea
Yeah, he does.
about how the quality of our input determines the quality of our output.
Exactly.
Without that connection to a larger purpose, it's just a charming anecdote.
Right.
But when you add that layer of meaning, it becomes much more impactful.
And memorable.
Exactly.
It's like the story suddenly has a job to do.
Yeah, like a mission.
Exactly. And the book gives us this helpful framework called the Nail Your Purpose model.
Nail your purpose. Okay.
It's a step-by-step guide to help you define the core message of your story
Makes sense.
and make sure it aligns with your goals.
So it's like a roadmap.
Kind of. Yeah,
To find that sweet spot where your story and your objective intersect.
exactly.
And there was this tip in the book that I loved
What was that?
about condensing your purpose into a tweet or a bumper sticker.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I love that
A
one.
bumper sticker.
It really forces you to get to the heart of the matter.
It does. Like, if your purpose is to emphasize customer service,
Oh, yeah.
your bumper sticker might be make every customer feel like a VIP.
Perfect.
Okay, so we've got our storytelling wells. We've nailed our purpose.
What's next?
What's next? Do we just start crafting our story and hope for the best?
Almost, but there's one more crucial piece.
Okay.
Our audience.
Right. Know your audience.
It's one of those things that's easier said than done, though.
It is.
Sometimes we get so caught up in our own stories that we forget about who we're telling them to.
That's true.
And that's where the book's story success mindset comes in.
Story success mindset.
Okay, it's all about asking yourself this one question.
Okay, what's the question?
How does this story serve the room?
How does the story serve the room?
Right, because even the best story will fall flat if it doesn't resonate with the audience.
It's like that story in the book about Bono offering a free U2 song.
Oh, yeah. And people were like, no thanks.
It's like, who says no to free U2?
I know, right? But it just goes to show that even the best content can miss the mark if it's not relevant to the audience.
We need to understand our audience deeply.
Yes, deeply.
And it's not just about demographics.
No, it's about their values, their challenges, their aspirations.
What keeps them up at night?
Exactly. What are they hoping to achieve?
Once you understand those things, then you can start to craft stories that really resonate.
Exactly.
It's about putting yourself in their shoes
Yes.
and asking, what's in it for me?
Right. And we often make assumptions about our audience without even realizing it.
That's so true.
Like that example in the book about the company that assumed their employees all wanted access to mental health services, but they didn't consider the stigma.
Oh, right. Good intentions, but they didn't fully consider the perspective of their audience. So knowing your audience is key.
It's crucial.
But what about the stories themselves? How do we actually craft those stories for maximum impact? Where do we even begin?
Okay, so we've got our wellspring of stories.
Right.
We've got our purpose nailed down.
Yep.
And we have a good understanding of our audience.
We're in good shape. Now, how do we shape those stories into something really captivating?
That's the fun part.
The book talks about creating these sizzling starts.
Yeah.
Ways to grab your audience's attention right from the beginning.
You gotta hook them.
Hook them, right. You have such a limited window to make a good first impression.
Those first few moments are crucial.
Make them want to keep listening.
It's like when you're scrolling through your podcast feed
Yeah.
and you see a title that's just like, ooh, I gotta listen to this right now.
Click.
Exactly.
So how do we create these sizzling starts?
Well, the book gives us a few techniques.
Lay 'em on me.
One is to use time and place.
Okay.
You know, like set the scene.
Paint a picture with words.
Exactly, like it was a cold December morning in London.
Okay.
Or imagine you're sitting in a packed conference room.
Ooh, I like that.
You're immediately transported to that world.
Right into the story.
Another good one is the hook of surprise.
Okay, tell me about this.
You start with a statement that's totally unexpected, or even a little provocative.
Give me an example.
Okay, remember that opening line from the book? My name was Salmon, like the fish. First name Susie. I was 14 when I was murdered on December 6, 1973.
Oh, yeah, that one definitely got my attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about a grabber.
You're immediately hooked.
Wondering where it's going to go.
What happens next?
That's the whole point, to create intrigue.
What other techniques are there?
Well, you could also start with a provocative question.
Okay.
Or you could just drop the listener right into the emotion of the story.
Go straight for the feels.
Exactly.
I like it.
There's also the dark start.
Dark start.
You begin with, like, a negative or challenging situation.
Ooh, get right to the conflict.
Exactly.
So many options.
I know, right? It's fun.
All right, so I've got a sizzling start.
Uh-huh.
But what about the middle of the story?
The meat of the story.
The magic middle, as the book calls it.
Yes, the magic middle. This is where showing, not telling comes in.
Oh, right, that old writing advice.
But it applies to storytelling, too.
How so?
Instead of just stating facts, you use vivid language,
Yeah.
sensory details, imagery.
You want the listener to feel like they're actually there.
Right, like they're experiencing it firsthand.
There's this technique the book talks about, the
Yeah.
fly-on-the-wall technique,
Right.
where you describe the scene as if the listener is, well, a fly on the wall.
You want to engage all their senses.
What did it smell like? What did it sound like?
Exactly.
Huh?
What were people's expressions like?
You're really drawing them into the story.
That's the goal.
The book also mentions the coffee with a friend approach.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's about being relatable.
Yeah, imagine you're just telling this story to a friend.
Over coffee.
Right. You wouldn't use all this formal language.
No jargon.
Exactly. You'd be natural, you'd be conversational.
Real. Like
Yeah.
you're just having a chat.
And maybe you'd be a little vulnerable too.
So the listener feels like they're right there with you.
Nodding along, like, yeah, I get that.
It's a shared experience.
Remember that example of the book about the poorly told tsunami story?
Oh, yeah. The one that just fell flat.
It had all the elements of a great story,
The drama, the tension.
but it lacked those vivid details.
It was missing that you are there feeling.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our sizzling start. We've got our magic middle.
What about the ending?
Right. We got to stick the landing.
You want to leave a lasting impression.
How do we create a power ending?
Well, the book gives us a 3-part formula.
Oh, I love formulas.
It's simple, but effective.
Tell me more.
Okay, so first, you have the bridge sentence.
Bridge sentence.
This smoothly transitions from the story to the message.
Okay.
Then you have the link sentence,
Link sentence.
which connects the story back to the point you're making.
Gotcha.
And finally, the zing words.
Zing words. Oh,
These
wow.
deliver your final takeaway in a memorable way.
So it's all about bringing everything together.
Yeah, tying a nice little bow on the whole package.
Okay, so we've got the beginning, the middle, and the end.
The 3 main parts of a story.
But it's not just about those individual pieces.
No, it's how they all fit together.
The flow.
Yeah, like putting together a puzzle.
All those individual pieces have to work together to create the complete picture.
And that's what the next section of the book is about.
Which is
Putting it all together. Flow,
Yeah.
form, finesse.
flow, form, finesse. Love it. It's like taking a rough diamond and polishing it until it sparkles.
The author breaks it down into 3 key areas.
All right, let's hear it.
Flow is about making sure the story makes sense, that it has logical coherence, and avoids jargon.
Okay, so flow, it all makes sense.
Right. Then there's form.
Form,
This is about refining the structure, the pacing, the word choice.
to make it as impactful as possible.
Exactly.
Then there's finesse.
This is where you add your own unique voice, your personality, maybe a touch of humor.
Ooh, finesse.
So it's about finding that balance between structure and spontaneity.
Yeah, you want a framework, but you don't want to sound robotic. The book also talks about story outliers,
Oh, yeah.
those stories that are a little, well, outside the mainstream,
They might not seem immediately relevant to business
but they can really make you stand out.
if you use them the right way.
The trick is to find those unexpected connections,
Yeah.
to use those outlier stories to illustrate a broader point.
Like that example in the book about the self-proclaimed science nerd.
Oh, yeah, the one who used a story about the Cassini spacecraft to explain a business concept.
At first glance, it seemed like a total tangent.
Totally random.
And then he brought it all back around.
And connected it to the main message.
It was surprising and insightful.
It's like you're taking the audience on an adventure
A little storytelling adventure.
through all these unexpected twists and turns.
But ultimately leading them to a destination that makes sense.
I like that analogy.
So we've talked a lot about crafting the story,
Yeah.
but there's one more crucial element we need to address:
What's that?
delivery.
Right. Yeah.
Even the best story can fall flat if it's not delivered well.
It's like that Jerry Seinfeld quote, do the work.
You got to prepare, you got to practice.
But the book also cautions against over-rehearsing.
Right. You don't want to sound like a robot.
You want to be prepared, but also sound natural and conversational.
It's a delicate balance.
Finding that sweet spot where you're confident in your material, but still connecting with your audience in a genuine way.
Exactly.
It's like that fine line between being polished and being, well, stiff.
You want to sound knowledgeable, but not like you're reading from a script.
The book also talks about different delivery contexts,
Oh, yeah, that's important.
like one-on-one, small group, large scale.
A story that works well in a casual conversation might not work so well in a formal presentation.
It's about being aware of your surroundings, your audience, the tone of the event.
Exactly. It's like having a toolbox of storytelling techniques,
And you choose the right tool for the job,
depending on the situation.
whether you're trying to persuade a client, inspire your team, or give a keynote address.
Exactly. And it's not just about the words you use, it's also about your mindset, your connection with the audience.
Your ability to inspire them.
Exactly.
Storytelling is a powerful tool.
It can be used for so many things.
To inform, to persuade, to entertain, to inspire.
It's a skill we could all develop.
With practice and intention.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's recap some of those practical delivery tips.
Good idea.
Keep it conversational. Practice, but don't over-rehearse. Use pauses effectively. Use body language. Project confidence.
That's a great summary.
It's a lot to remember.
It is.
But it seems like with practice, we can master these techniques.
Absolutely.
And make our stories truly shine.
You got it. And here's the thing.
What's that?
It's not just about being a story master.
Okay.
It's about taking it a step further and becoming a story artist.
A story artist. Wow. Okay, what's the difference?
It's like elevating your storytelling to a whole new level.
So you're not just telling stories.
No, you're crafting experiences.
Experiences that resonate deeply with the audience.
Exactly. It's about authenticity. It's about uniqueness. It's about taking risks.
So we're back to that amateur to artist model.
Right. We all start somewhere
But we can all move along that spectrum.
and become more impactful storytellers.
One of the key steps, according to the book, is to find your X factor.
Yes.
That unique quality that sets you apart.
What makes you you?
I love that. Finding your X factor.
Embrace what makes you unique and bring it into your storytelling.
It can be scary to put yourself out there like that.
It can be, but that's where the growth happens.
Pushing beyond your comfort zone.
Taking risks, experimenting, being willing to learn.
And even the greatest storytellers had to start somewhere.
Right, they weren't born with this ability.
They honed their craft over time.
Through practice, feedback, and experimentation.
The book also talks about story listening.
Oh, I love that concept.
Actively seeking out stories.
In everyday life.
It's about being present, paying attention to the world around us.
Finding those little nuggets of inspiration.
And then turning those nuggets into compelling narratives.
It's like having a beginner's mind.
Always being open to new possibilities.
And new ways of seeing the world.
So it's not just about mastering techniques.
It's also about cultivating a mindset.
A way of being in the world that allows us to become more effective storytellers.
It's a journey.
It is a journey.
But a rewarding one.
Definitely rewarding.
And it starts with that first step.
That commitment to doing the work.
Practicing, experimenting, seeking out those stories that resonate.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
From Aristotle's modes of persuasion to sizzling starts, magic middles, power endings, and even story artistry.
I feel like a storytelling expert now.
Me too. And the best part is that these tools aren't just for work.
Right? You can use them in any area of your life.
Anywhere you want to connect, persuade, or inspire.
Exactly.
So to everyone listening out there, what are you waiting for? Dive into your own storytelling wells, define your purpose, craft those impactful stories, and share them with the world.
Go forth and tell stories.
And don't forget, the book is Story Mastery: How Leaders Supercharge Results with Business Storytelling by Yamini Naidu.
Check it out.
As always, thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, happy storytelling.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.